disconnect the fan and release the clamps. Squeeze in the clips here to release them from the collar and lift it out like that. Dampen a lint-free cloth with isopropyl alcohol. Clean off the excess thermal paste from the top surface of the processor. And do the same with the heatsink. Clean off all the paste from the heatsink to leave a nice clean surface. So release the lever on the socket, lift it vertical, and then take out the processor and put it into an anti-static container for safekeeping. Open the zero insertion force socket, take the processor out of the anti-static packaging, being careful not to touch any of the delicate gold pins. Notice that one corner has missing pins indicating pin 1 position. On the top it also has a triangle, and the same on the socket, 2 missing holes and a little triangle. Fit the processor the right way round into the socket. Just gently drop it into the socket. It shouldn't need any force. Check that the processor has seated correctly all the way around. Hold it in place and lock the socket. A little spot of thermal compound onto the processor. Just a tiny little amount. Fit the heatsink on top. Make sure that the clips fit inside the clamp, both sides. All 4 securely in place, and then tighten up the clamps. Finally fit the power connection from the fan down onto the mother. Right, disconnect the fan from the motherboard.
Sorry, just hold it there now. Okay.
And then release the clamps by rotating them 90 degrees and lift them out. Rotate and lift. Make sure they're all loose. And lift away. Clean off the paste from the heatsink and also from the top of the processor. I'm going to lift this lever out like that, release the clamp, lift this plate off here, like that, and then lift the processor out of the... Right, so open the socket and lift the pressure plate. Be careful not to touch any of the pins on the socket. So notice the notches on the processor here and here, and line them up with the socket notches there and there. Once you've got it lined up, drop the processor into the socket, making sure that it's lined up properly. And just close the pressure clamp and the clip, locked into position. Yeah. This split pin has to pass through a hole in the board, completely through, and once it's flat down, we press the clip to spread the split pin and lock it into position. When we unlocked it, we turned it round and lifted the centre pin out to release the split pin.
It's next to it now.
Just a small spot of space on the centre of the processor.
Okay.
Right. Just line it up on top of the processor. Make sure that the pins go through all 4 holes. And then firmly hold it down and lock the pin into position. Firmly down and lock into position here as well. And finally, slats it.
Mr. Director.
With the plug, notice the keying of the plug. So I'm just going to show you the plug and the fact that it has a key position here and a lug to line it up on the socket. Okay?
Okay.
And then just plug it in. And make sure that the cable is tucked out of the way.
Yep.
Carefully lift the board out, handling it only by the bracket here and by the edge of the board.
Do that bit again.
Careful not to touch the gold edge connector.
Great.
And then into the anti-static bag. Removing the memory, open up the clips like that, it lifts the memory out of the socket, hold it again just by the edges, don't touch the gold, and put it into the bag.
Okay, I'm ready when you're.
Okay, tidy up the cables, make sure that they're well away from the fan. Cable tie it round and through. Pull it tight. And then cut off any excess. In line with the cables, just snip it away and release them. Make sure you keep the cables away from the moving fans and hot surfaces. Touching the chassis and one end touching the battery.
What have you got as a shot there?